Hey, what's up guys? Joe from OMGRC here today. So on one of my previous videos, I did an upgrade to the electronic speed controller for a customer. Well, it turns out that the motor was bad. More than likely the motor was bad, and what happened was it just was drawing way too many amps, shorted out the electronic speed controller, and then without him disconnecting the battery itself, shorted out the battery. So it was just a chain reaction, because when you move this one, it doesn't really, it's like it's not smooth at all. So I was like, this is not the way it normally runs, is it? He's like, yeah, this is the way it rolls. So I was like, nah, there's something not right with it. So I took it apart and said, yeah, this thing's not, you got a bad motor. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put in the hobby wing. Here it is right here. You guys can take a look at that. So it's basically, it's comparable to this, about the same. It's a 3200 kV. This one here is also, this is a 3000 kV that's in this one. So we're gonna go ahead and install this. It'll be fine with this. This is gonna be this can do up to a 3S battery. So unfortunately, this thing can do a 4S, but this guy won't be able to. So with that being said, he's cool with it being on a 3S system. He's perfectly fine with that. So no problems there. So we're gonna get started into doing this upgrade. So what we'll need to do, there's going to be a few screws that need to be taken out of here to get to it. I'm going to try and point that out as we speak right this second. There's going to be an Allen screw here, and there's one there. There's one also right here. And then you'll need to, you probably don't need to remove it completely. Well, yeah, you probably would be best to go ahead and do that. I'm just gonna, there's only a couple screws to do it, so I'll just take those out. It'll just make it easier just to drop down, and that'll release the dog bones right out of there. And then we can get right to the actual case itself. I've already loosened this up because that's how I had to check it. So you guys can see that. I loosened up a couple of the screws that were there to hold this gearbox together, so I could take a look at this and try to spin it. So I'll get into that. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'll remove these first, so not a big deal. I'm not gonna do that over on the camera because that's slow and boring. So I'll just start with this, and then I'll continue from there. Okay, so I removed this plate, so I'm gonna continue on removing the screws that are on the top. Like I said, this one's already loose here, but you got a couple more screws. So I'll go ahead and remove this screw, this screw, this screw, and this screw. And that will allow us to drop this drivetrain out of there. So, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And okay, so I'm pulling out the drivetrain right now. So we got our two dog bones that just popped out of there. And now we can get to our motor. So we'll go ahead and disconnect it. So now we got that done. And then from that point, we'll go ahead and remove, just making sure. Got one here, one there, another one there, and there. And we'll be able to take that off of that. And then we'll get to, there should be like two screws that are actually holding this motor in. So I'll show you that. I've gone ahead and I loosened them all up. I already had them pretty loose anyhow. And then we get right to it. It's just plastic gears that are in there. And as far as I can tell, we're not missing any teeth in there. It turns smooth, so all good on that part of it. But as far as the motor, you know, normally you can kind of give like a little bit of a spin to it. It may not go very far, but as far as when you spin it, but yeah, it's pretty much, it's seized up. It was glitching all out and everything like that when you tried to go forward on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove these two screws and obviously take off the pinion gear as well. And we'll get to replacing this motor, and we'll go into a little bit, you know, I'll do a little unboxing of this motor too, right? Okay, so I loosened everything up here so we can get the pinion gear off. And then as far as the other gears, or I'm sorry, the screws, go ahead and take those out. So we'll go ahead and put this old motor aside, can't use. And then we'll get into as far as this guy here. So I'll just do this real quick here because I know this is boring stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and just pause it, and we'll get to unwrapping this thing. So I'll just continue. Okay, so here's our motor. Nice long cables there. Comes with the gear already for it, but this is going to be a 32. I'm sorry, looks like a 48 pitch is what the gear that comes with it, which we can't use because we're using this. Comes with a Mod 1 setup. So, but 5mm shafts that are on there. So that's what we're going to use. Same can size, so we're good on that. All right. So getting back to this. So I'm going to go ahead and put it back on the plate here. Obviously I want to put this on here first. We'll get it mounted and make sure it's all right when it comes to the positioning of the wires where they're coming out of. We don't want this thing hanging straight down, so I want to make sure I position that correctly. So I'll get that mounted up and I'll show you that part of it. All right. So looking at this right here, yeah, they look like they would be a good match because you got hole here, hole here, hole here, and that's what it used with these two holes here, and that's what I was going to do because of the way the wires come out down at the bottom. Here's the problem that I ran into, and if you guys have done this, maybe you've run into the same issue, at least in my case right now, is that this plate, it's off by just a little bit. The screw will not go in straight in. It's trying to go in in a slant. So what I need to do is I need to hone out the holes that I need to use. So I'm just going to hone out. The thing is, if you hone out too much, I'm going to hone out one and do the other. If it's too much, then what will happen is that gear will either be too close to the gears inside, which will then make it run hard, or up too close, so that you got to make sure that that tolerance is really close. So you don't want to take much off. I'm going to be using, I believe with this Dremel here, this is a 1/8 bit, if I'm not mistaken. It's just a little bit, so it already kind of goes in there a little bit. So I'm just going to run it and hone out I'm just going to do all four of them. So here, 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 and here for the motor placement. And if I do it that way, I'm not like honing out a big hole just on one of them. That way, again, that tolerance that it's going to push that motor too close to the gear or too far away, therefore causing problems. So I'm just going to do that. I'll try one of them, and I'll just put it in there and see how that works. I'll mount the motor before I go ahead and I use any kind of Loctite on finishing the project here. So I want to make sure that it still runs smooth, and then I'll come back and I'll undo the motor, and then continue on from there. I just want to make sure on my own. So that's what I'm going to do behind the scenes there. I'm going to make sure that all these are honed out just a little bit, and that should give me enough to what I need to get that motor in there. So okay, so what I did was I went ahead, and again, I believe this is a 1/8 drill bit. You can always compare it. What I did, it just starts to fit in to the hole that's there for the screws. I did one at a time. So I tried it with just one. It wasn't enough. I did two, and it seems like I'm getting there. It looks like it might be leaning just a little bit, so there might be still a little bit that needs to be taken off of it. But I'm gonna go ahead and make sure of that before I go ahead and screw that down, as I don't want to cross thread anything and strip something out. So continuing on, this is one hurdle I'll have to get over here, and if you guys are doing the same thing, this might be potentially the same problem that you might run into as well. So giving you that little tip like you might run into. Okay, so what I did is, if you can see the way this is all laid out and how the motor, I did have it where the wires were hanging down lower, and of course if this thing's mounted in the truck, now I can kind of show you a little bit better. But anyway, the way it's mounted currently, so you can kind of see that better. You can see the way the wires are going to be now. Hopefully you can see. I'm going to zoom in here. All right, so you can see that now, the way the wires are. This is soft. I mean, it's anyway, it's not a sharp edge that's there. But when it comes to the wires, I want to make sure that they weren't hanging down. That's what I was getting at. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how that's positioned. I haven't put any Loctite on there yet, but this is what I'm using. It's the blue. So this is just some Loctite. So I'll go ahead and put the Loctite here and here. And as far as the motor goes, it should be good. I already tightened that down as far as the pinion gear. So yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. Put that hook. Go ahead and I'll put that all back in, and then we'll go from there. Went ahead and thread locked the spur gear, thread locked the 2 screws that hold the motor in, and I'm going to go ahead and install my motor. So we'll get that done. So I'll go ahead and screw those down. Here, here, here. See that? So we get those taken care of, and then we'll go ahead and do the install, putting this back in there, and then we'll give it a test. I actually have the radio here with me today, so I can test it all, make sure it works in front of you guys. All right. So now that I have the motor installed to the actual transmission, you can see that. It spins nicer than the seized motor. All right, and then we'll go ahead. I know this isn't going to work on camera when I go ahead and I hook this up to the dog bones. These things are going to fall out of here. That's just more than likely a given, but yeah, exactly. So I'll go ahead and mount that back up. But I'll show you how I'm kind of doing this anyway. There's other techniques, and with the camera in your face, just about, makes it a little bit more difficult. But anyhow, so I'll go ahead and flip that. Obviously the screws start to come out of there. It's okay. But if we get one of them in there, get it lined up, at least to hold. And then from there, put that back in. I'm just using manual stuff. I know everybody else have different tools. I don't care. I just use this anyway. Just whatever comes with the kits with some of these RC cars, what I use. Maybe down the road I'll get a set or something like that. But for now, it's not a big deal. I don't mind it. I don't work on a lot of these as far as, these are like, this is my buddy's RC truck. So I was like, hey man, let me go ahead and I'll work on your vehicle. Because since I do everything pretty much online, I don't have anybody sending me cars to work on as of yet. But I don't mind doing these little videos also to kind of show you guys, especially if you have never done one of those, you know, because all these RC cars pretty much now, unless you get some of there's some kits that you can purchase. But, you know, a lot of them you don't take apart anymore. It's pretty much, you run it, and if it breaks, then you're taking it apart. And then you're trying to figure out, well, how does this come apart? What do I need to do? What's the easiest way to do it? So you kind of make mistakes as you go along, you know, trying to figure out how it goes. I mean, there's definitely, and you do get instruction manuals too to give you kind of an exploded view. I'm not sure if a lot of them have any kind of like, they don't have like a step-by-step. They just, again, just kind of showing you how it kind of works or how it gets put together or disassembled in an exploded view. So, all right, so anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and I'll put these screws in, get that all mounted up, and then I'll go ahead and hook up these wires, color for color. And then we'll give it a test. So, as it's kind of mounted in there right now. Definitely rolls a lot better than the other motor that was in there. So good deal. All right, sounds good. So we'll continue on. All right, so one thing, big difference with the new motor is the cables are really long compared to this. So what I'm just gonna do right now is I'm gonna go ahead and just hook these up, and then I'm gonna figure out, and I'll show you what we can do in regards to these wires. I'll see if I can make it a little bit neater. I just don't want them flopping all around. I might bring up a little bit of slack on this here. Bring those up to there. And then maybe I don't want to zip tie, probably zip tie them maybe to the chassis a little bit here. That's not going to really work. But I'll figure out something with that. That's not a big deal. I want to just, let's get it running. So we'll go ahead and hook this up. We get our, that should be good on that part of it. And let me go ahead and we'll just get the remote. So we'll power on a remote. Do that first. Power on the car. I'll just set this down a little bit, make sure that it works. Alright guys, good to always make sure that you have the right remote in your hand and not just one that's in sight that I just grabbed. So anyway, yeah, I had the wrong remote, that's why it wasn't working, so no biggie. Alright, so just turn on the remote first. Make sure that works. Definitely seems to be working pretty good. So my buddy will be happy on that one. Alright, well I hope you guys found this video informative. If you haven't checked out OMGRC, I invite you to do so. We sell all kinds of different stuff on there, so we're always getting new stuff. So as far as me telling you now, yeah, we might have something by next week, something different as far as another vendor. So definitely check us out. And until next time, guys, later.